जी मैं यवतमाल से हूँ। यवतमाल
Sure.
महाराष्ट्र।
Very nice. Welcome.
Yeah.
So we will actually start now. I think it is about time. We'll have more people joining as and when that happens. So namaste everyone. This is our 12th session of Manav Vyavhar Darshan reading, and we had Sanjana cover some part of it in the last session, and we will have her continue in this session as well, and the next, and if required even further. Yeah, so basically,
I
yeah.
hope we don't go that far.
Yeah, no, but I specifically liked your rendition of the session last time. I've listened to it afterwards also, especially about the mm, description of purpose. What does it mean to actually have a purpose or understand the purpose? So this talking about the purpose has become an in thing, and everybody seems to be saying that I need to find my purpose. So what Darshan is saying is that we basically understand what is the purpose of human being. It's not about individual purpose. So first understand, recognize yourself as a human being, understand what is the purpose of a human being, and as part of that, align your goals with respect to that. Right. So understand that. So once we see that all humans have the same purpose, understand it logically, understand it, the reality of it, not just it is not something that is true for ourselves, it is true for everyone. So then we become confident that we are not alone, and this pursuit becomes easier. So please make it alive for uh, in the text by reading it. So welcome again, Sanjana.
Thank you, Chacha ji, and once again, thanks to everybody who is also here. I think one thing that is always very refreshing, very rejuvenating, and gives a lot of strength is the idea that all of us are in this journey together, and especially seeing the interest, seeing how regularly all of us are coming together to participate in these sessions. It really brings a lot of joy and also a lot of encouragement. So it's very good to have everybody here uh, in this journey together. So I think let's begin.
Just share the screen. Are you able to see this? I'll just go
Yes,
to the place where we left it last time.
yes. So I had finished the fifth Anubhuti,
Ji.
right? So the study of indivisible sociality is based solely on intrinsic nature, propensity, and perspective of humaneness. So I just thought I'll do a quick, recap of this.
Mhm.
After the last session, as I was thinking more about this, I was thinking about the significance of this line. And a lot of times actually Babaji has emphasized on the fact that the study has to be done through the lens of what is right, and the study has to be done through the lens of what is humane. So, that I find very important and very useful, actually. So, even here, for example, he has emphasized, the word solely, that the study of indivisible sociality is based solely on the intrinsic nature, propensity, and perspective of humans. So, a few days ago, actually, I was reading an article about education, and I'm in this field, so I am regularly in touch with different kinds of readings and different kinds of thought processes. And this title was called Preparing Children for a VUCA World, VUCA. I'm wondering if anybody here is familiar with this acronym. I'll write it in the chat box also. So VUCA actually stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So, this is actually an acronym that was developed by some people in the corporate sector, and now it has caught on. The idea that this acronym is representing is the fact that the world is volatile, the world is complex, the world is ambiguous and uncertain. And that is why there is a need to prepare the workforce, to thrive in a volatile and uncertain world. And therefore, there is a need to now prepare children to be the workforce that can thrive in a volatile and uncertain world. So, as I was thinking more and more about this, I realized that actually, when viewed through the lens of humaneness, as Babaji has viewed, um, you know, uh, actually, we see that there is certainty. We see that the rules and the ways of being are very clear. We see that it is possible to study and understand nature. It is possible to study the definite properties of things. So when viewed through the lens of humaneness, we actually don't find a lot of uncertainty or a lot of ambiguity, right? When viewed through the lens of humaneness, we find certainty, we find we find uncomplexity, we find that things can be understood and it is possible to live fulfillingly in this kind of world. When we think that the world is volatile and uncertain, which is basically when viewed through the lens of inhumanness, where basically where everything is unpredictable. So you always have to be on guard. You always have to be prepared for the worst case scenario. You always have to have 10 backup plans. You always have to think about, okay, if this goes wrong, I need to be prepared with X, Y, Z other plans. So, when viewed through humaneness, you find that it is actually possible to live in harmony with each other. It is possible to live without ambiguity, to live with transparency, to live with complete, trust and respect, etc. So, seeing this side of the world is possible only when we choose to see it through the lens of existence as coexistence. So, therefore, to be able to see society as undivided, it is important to see it through these humane perspectives and tendencies and nature. And then, in continuation of that, we can see that actually the societal systems and the structures that we have, the purpose of these is meant to ensure that this view of undivided society and this way of seeing society as undivided, this way of seeing the world through a humane lens, this actually passes on from one generation to the next, so that this kind of worldview and this kind of perspective, and therefore the system and the structure itself is protected and reaches the next generation in its intact form. So, this is something that I wanted to add for this Anubhuti. So with that background, we can see that Babaji has characterized these various tendencies, propensities, etc., in three categories. So let's take a look at these. Based on the above, human tendencies are seen to have three categories: inhumaneness, humaneness, and higher humaneness. The system that protects, nurtures, and encourages inhumane nature, propensity, and perspectives is an inhumane or animalistic system. Inhumane nature, which is basically amanviya swabhav, it includes vileness, treacherousness, and cruelness itself. Inhumane propensity means eating, sleeping, defending, and mating. And inhuman perspectives are the perspectives of pleasant, unpleasant, healthy, unhealthy, and profit and loss. So, first of all, let's understand what nature or swabhav is. So that is, the Hindi word for that is maulikta, something that is innate in us, something that is basically the intrinsic nature, of any entity or of anything, that is its nature. The important thing about inhumane nature is that actually, when the person who possesses inhumane nature is not only it not only has a negative impact on other people, it also has a negative impact on oneself. So, now actually we also have a lot of studies, etc., to prove it. People in the field of psychology all over the world have been studying how hormones in the body act when, for example, when one is feeling angry, when one is feeling fearful, etc. So, when displaying these tendencies, even on a very on the most superfluous level, at the level of the body also, one can see that they have a very negative effect. And of course, on the level of the self, on the level of the jivan, the kind of propensities and then behavior that it gives rise to, it is not only harmful for others, it also ends up affecting ourselves. So that is what has been described here. um, when one sees the inhumane propensities, eating, sleeping, etc. One time I was in a shivir actually, and someone asked a very interesting question. They said that even a realized or a divine human being will also be eating and sleeping, right? So why have these been called inhumane propensities? So I think a lot of people might have this question. So the idea here is not that eating and sleeping itself is inhumane, but the expectation of continuous happiness from eating, sleeping, etc. is inhumane. So, it is not that the divine human being will not be eating and sleeping, but that they will understand what the purpose of eating and sleeping is. So when one understands and is able to correctly place the role of these activities in the human life, it becomes easy to understand that their role is not to give us continuous happiness, but to fulfill a certain part. For example, the role of eating is to give the body nourishment so that we are able to use the body and participate in the larger order, etc. So that correct placement is important. So same with the with the inhumane perspectives of the pleasant, unpleasant, healthy, unhealthy, profit loss, etc. So for example, healthy, unhealthy. Once again, the perspective itself is not wrong. The divine human being will also be concerned about keeping the body physically healthy. But once again, the purpose of keeping the body healthy will not be, so that the body can be used to engage in further, these kinds of activities. The purpose of keeping the body healthy will be once again to use the body to participate in the larger order, in the overall purview of undivided society and universal order. So basically these tendencies will be governed by the larger purview, by the larger overall sense of existence as coexistence and participating in the creation of universal order, not as individual things, or not as individual perspectives from which I want to gain some kind of happiness or pleasure. So that is what is actually inhumane here. It is the expectation of continuous happiness from these things. So for example, the expectation of continuous happiness from only the senses, that is inhumane. The expectation of wanting well-being and nourishment of the body to be able to enjoy with the body, that is inhumane. And similarly, in the profit perspective also, the activity of seeking the activity of basically exploitation, giving less and wanting more, giving less and extracting more, that in itself is inhumane. And once we start moving towards humaneness, slowly this tendency or this propensity, this will change towards samriddhi or prosperity, wherein we will actually understand what the feeling or the understanding of having more than what we need. So that is basically the journey that we have to traverse currently, from the activity of seeking more than the labor performed to actually understanding the right value, understanding the value of the labor, and then dealing accordingly. So these are the inhumane drishtis or the perspectives. Servileness or deenta is the tendency to seek refuge in others to alleviate one's misery. This is referred to as servileness, and servileness arises out of poverty or incapacity. So let's see what these words also mean. Poverty means the desire to consume or utilize more than what is produced itself is poverty. Laziness, negligence, ignorance, scarcity, natural calamities, and societal non-cooperation are the causes of poverty. So, I mean, this is fairly self-explanatory. One thing that I found very interesting was that actually a lot of times in modern economics, poverty is defined as a number. So there is, most countries have a poverty line. So poverty is mostly associated with a number, that if you earn less than this, or if you consume less than this figure, it means that you are below the poverty line. And here, poverty is defined in very different terms. It is basically the desire to consume or utilize more than what is produced. So, it's a very different perspective of seeing poverty. And with that, one is also able to understand how to place it in the overall context. So it is not really related to how much you have or don't have, how much you produce or don't produce, but basically, it is basically the desire to consume or utilize more than what you are producing. So it's a more holistic way of looking at poverty. And the second cause of Deenta was incapacity. So incapacity refers to the inability to perform intellectual activity or the desired work or labor. So, diseases and unawakening are the causes of incapacity. This is also fairly self-explanatory. Heenta or treacherousness. So the betrayal of trust itself is treacherousness. Betrayal of trust is the conduct contrary to what is expected from someone itself is betrayal of trust. So, we will read ahead also in the next few anubhutis that within any association or any relationship, there are always some expectations. Some are very clearly laid out, some are not very clearly laid out, yet the expectation is still there. For example, from any human being, the basic expectation of trust and respect is there. Even if you meet someone for 2 minutes, for example, you're going somewhere, you ask directions, there is an inherent expectation that this person will tell me the right directions. So, there is a basic expectation from every human being by virtue of all of us being human beings. And the betrayal of trust, basically the conduct contrary to what is expected from someone is, the betrayal of trust. Then there are, these various very detailed vyakhyas of what betrayal of the different kinds of betrayal of trust. I feel, I mean, I don't think that we should spend a lot of time discussing what these are. The primary message here is that we don't have to engage in any of them. So I'll still read through these. These are actually fairly self-explanatory. Deceit is the betrayal of trust that goes unnoticed or undisclosed even after it occurs. Fraud, the betrayal of trust that gets revealed or exposed afterwards, is referred to as fraud. So, for example, a lot of times in the newspapers, we read that so and so government or so and so minister or etc. committed so and so fraud. Even within relationships, this can happen. Perfidy is the betrayal of trust that is done even after giving assurance, is referred to as perfidy. Hypocrisy, the betrayal of trust that is done with ostentation, is referred to as hypocrisy. So, these are various degrees of betrayal of trust. So sometimes some people will claim that, I will never do this and make a huge show out of it. And despite that, conduct the, betrayal of trust. So that is hypocrisy. So like these are, various ways in which this can happen. Very important for us to remember to not engage in any of these. Cruelness. the use of intellect to forcefully eliminate the existence of others to ensure one's own survival, or the exploitation activity, is called cruelness. So I find this definition very interesting, because very often we associate cruelness with the act itself. Even in a lot of laws, for example, it is the act that is seen as the point that it is the act that is seen as the defining moment of the crime, for example. However, the way Babaji has defined it, even the use of intellect. So like even I interpret it this way, that even thinking about wanting to eliminate the existence of others, even if one is not really acting on it, but using intellect, making a plan, doing all of that elaboration in one's own head, that itself also constitutes cruelness. So, this is in alignment with many other things that we see in the darshan also. For example, when we talk about karma or activities or acts or the things we do, so the mansik karma, or what we think, is also seen as an activity. So it this definition goes in tandem with that idea as well, that thinking is also an activity, even if nobody on the outside can see it, even if there is no proof of it. The fact that I have thought of it means that act has occurred. And therefore, this definition is very interesting, and I think there is a lot that we can understand by understanding the nuances of this definition. Let's go ahead. Crime and retaliation are two differentiations of cruelness. Crime is wrongfully owned wealth, adultery, and the work and behavior of inflicting pain on others. Criminal cruelness manifests in the form of violence, while retaliatory cruelness manifests in the form of counter violence. So both of these are violence, right? Often, we hear people saying that, oh, what if the other person slapped me? Then should I not slap back? Should I not hit back? So there are all these kinds of questions, and this has actually been a discourse for a long time in society. How do you respond to violence? How do you counter violence? And Babaji has made it very clear that retaliatory cruelness, also constitutes cruelness. And basically, it is part of the same umbrella of cruelness. Crime, these are three things that, again, that we have discussed very frequently: wrongfully owned wealth, adultery, and the work and behavior of inflicting pain on others. So basically, this is not doing these is the minimal requirement, for moving towards awakening or jagriti. So of course, anubhav, or the act of realization, will take time, but the first and very obvious step is to stay away from these things. So this is, this is basically what comes into practice. This is what comes into our way of living first. Okay, so let's go to the next anubhuti. The system that protects, nurtures, and encourages human nature, propensity, and perspective is referred to as the humane system. So, till now, what we were discussing was the inhumane system, which encourages the inhumane nature, propensity, and perspective. Now, we are talking about the humane system, which protects and nurtures the humane nature, propensity, etc. So, what are all of these things? Humane nature constitutes fortitude, courage, and generosity. Humane propensity constitutes progeny desire, wealth desire, and reputation desire. And humane perspectives constitute justice, injustice, dharma, dharma, and truth, untruth. Right? So let's talk about fortitude, courage, and generosity first. So these have actually been covered in the previous chapter as well. I'll just give a quick recap of the definitions. So fortitude basically is my, as an individual, my determination, patience, and my commitment towards creating justice, in the values in my relationships. So for example, if I take a stand today that, you know, irrespective of where the other person is, irrespective of what they are doing, I will, be present with the intention of wanting to do justice. And I am present with the dedication and commitment and the patience to do right, at least from my side, what is required and what is expected in this relationship. So uh, that is my fortitude, basically. That is my dheerta. The second one, courage. This actually has an interesting example in the book Avartanshil Arthashastra. So for example, now I am there. I am present with commitment towards all of my relations, right? Now I have a relationship with A and I have a relationship with B. I am trying to maintain justice with A and I am trying to maintain justice with B. A and B are also related to each other, right? So now if they are in a conflict, if they are fighting, if they are in disagreement, because I am related to both of them, I will also be committed to make sure that their relationship with each other, is also smooth, and their relationship with each other is also fulfilling for both of them. So it is not just enough for me to have a good relationship with A and to have a good relationship with B separately. I want that both A and B should also have a good relationship with each other. And this becomes very important. For example, in my own home, for example, if I am there and my sister are there, and if both of us are fighting, my parents are not going to like that. My parents will want that our two children are also living in harmony with each other. They are practicing values with each other. So my commitment and my dedication will be channelized into me using my energy and effort to make sure that others are also practicing justice in their relationship. That is courage. So living with virta actually means that I am committed to using my energy, effort, etc., so that the other people that I am related to, they are living in harmony with each other. And similarly, generosity is sort of a more expanded form of that. So just like, A and B are related to me, everybody in the world eventually, is related to each other. And therefore, when I see my relationship with all of them, I will want to use my time, effort, my tan, man, dhan, my resources, and I will happily use my resources. So the Hindi definition of generosity actually uses the word prasannata purvak, So with very much happiness, I will be using my resources to make sure that everybody experiences justice. So this is generosity. These three are the humane natures. Humane propensities are progeny desire, wealth desire, and reputation desire. So the propensity basically is, our desire, the desire of the human being, which has been channelized into universal good. So, using my desire and channelizing it into the idea of universal good, using it for to serve the idea of existence as coexistence, of undivided society, of universal order. That refers to, so that happens in these three ways. So, for example, progeny desire is actually the desire for strength in the family, the desire for more numbers in the family, for the universal purpose of, creating a undivided society and universal order. So, for example, if I think that I'm playing my role in raising the next generation, so that the next generation can go towards right understanding, so that they become members of society and they contribute to creating an undivided society. They contribute towards, they participate towards maintaining universal order. If I am, engaging in my progeny desire with this sort of a perspective, then that becomes the, progeny desire with humane propensity. Similarly, wealth desire, the Hindi definition of this says dhan bal kamna, which basically refers to the six kinds of, avashaktas that we spoke about in the last session. So, now again, this is the difference in perspective. So for one person, the desire to accumulate more wealth can be, from the point of view of show off, or from the point of view of flaunting it. And for someone else, the thought behind, wanting to, the desire to have more wealth can be that, more wealth will enable my contribution towards, building a better society, towards contributing to, the undivided society and universal order. So, for example, a lot of Jeevan Vidya Sansthans all over the country in the past few years, they have, done some construction, etc., so that there are more rooms, so that there is a bigger hall. The purpose of that is so that more people can come, so that more people can participate, and more people start going towards, this path of wisdom. More people start going towards realization. So, wanting, more, the desire for resources, so that my contribution in society is enabled, so that my contribution in society is supported, that is the wealth desire. And similarly, the reputation desire, also known as yash bal kamna, again, this is the desire for reputation in the interests of undivided society. So, for example, now this is not about going viral over the internet. This is not about thinking that, oh, my videos will get so many likes or they will get so many views. It is the idea that, hey, I am saying something that is useful. And if this is accessible to more people, it will spark off some thinking in more people. What we also call lok vyapikaran, for example, this idea will reach more people, and therefore it will lead to the creation of more realized individuals. So, that is how we can place the, reputation desire as well. Now, similarly, the perspectives, the humane perspectives of, justice, injustice, dharma, dharma, and truth, untruth, these have also been covered. So, we'll just quickly see, the definition. So, justice pertains to the system of behavior based on policies that protect humaneness. I think the definition of, dharma and truth are not written here, but I can still read them out. Just one second. Yeah. So, the definition of, dharma, basically is, that seeing things in the overall purview of society. So, seeing the overall purview of undivided society, seeing, the understanding that, the purpose of, human beings, and how it aligns with the creation of, undivided society. That would be, dharma. And, satya, or, truth, that would be, I'm just reading this out from the Paribhasha app. So understanding that, coexistence, this understanding that existence is coexistence, understanding this as the ultimate, truth. This is the perspective of, truth and untruth. So another interesting thing here is that right now in this state, the, the humane perspectives includes both justice and injustice. It includes dharma as well as adharma. It includes truth as well as untruth. So, this is also interesting. there is a word that the way I have placed this is, and Chachaji, if you feel that something else can be added to this, feel free to add on to the discussion. There is a stage that Babaji has also described where the with the right understanding, the the bhram or the delusion, that is also being evaluated. The mistakes or the errors that we have made, that is also being evaluated. So as the understanding of right develops, the samiksha or the the evaluation or understanding the incompleteness of what is wrong, that process is also occurring on the side. So that is why in this stage we have both justice as well as injustice, both dharma as well as adharma, and both truth as well as untruth. When we go to the next perspective, which is the higher humane nature, etc., there we will not find adharma or anyaya or untruth in that perspective.
Yeah, I think the my understanding is also the same. It is once you have the understanding of what is justice, you are able to also see what is injustice. If you
Exactly.
do not have the understanding of justice, then you don't even understand what injustice is. So it is all relative over there. So
Yes.
it's only when you have the understanding of justice and also are able to see what is injustice, then you choose to be on the side of justice. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Chachaji. So with that, we can also proceed, to the next anubhuti, a system or individual endeavor that provides adequate opportunities and resources for the cultivation of higher humane nature, propensity, and perspectives is referred to as a higher humane societal system. A higher humanely societal system is exemplified by indivisible society, family-based self-organizing system as evidence of humane tradition. So basically, this is Ati Manviyata. Kindness, grace, and compassion is the higher humane nature. Can we scroll down, Achaji? Fine. Uh, so within this, kindness, those who have the receptivity but lack the corresponding content, the endeavor of making that content available to them is kindness. Grace, when the content is available but its corresponding receptivity or humane perspective is lacking, then the endeavor of instilling that receptivity is grace. And finally, compassion, those who have neither receptivity nor the content available, then the endeavor of making those available to them itself is compassion. So, this is a good distinction. And so, when we look at kindness, for example, those who have the receptivity but lack the content. So many of us, for example, when we went off in our quests, everyone has had a quest. When we started feeling that something is not right, something is missing in how I see the world, how I engage with the world, and we all set off. A lot of us have had many long journeys, having explored various philosophies, various schools of thought. So, there basically we had, when we finally came here, when we reached the darshan, we had the receptivity. We came with the thirst, we came with the questions, we came with the curiosity. And that is why, when we came here, we were sort of receptive to the content. So those of us, those senior to us who gave us the content, they basically showed kindness towards us. So when people show up with receptivity, with curiosity, but lack the content, when the content is given to them, making the content available to them is the act of kindness. So actually, we are very grateful to many of our senior prabodhaks, etc., who have been very kind to us in uh, making this content available for us. Now grace is where the situation is sort of overturned. So places where content is available, but the receptivity or the humane perspective is not available, is lacking. So instilling the receptivity is grace. And this obviously seems to be a much more difficult task than kindness. So, for example, many of us, I have personally seen in many Parichaya Shivers, or the introductory workshops, where some people come and often, those who are sort of brought by their family members. And, there the facilitator or the prabodhak has to make a lot of effort in first instilling the curiosity in the person. So, when the person comes with the perspective that everything is right in my life and, I don't really need this. So, actually making them realize that this content is relevant for you, this content is useful for you, and making them feel curious about exploring more. That is a much harder job. And that basically is grace or kripa. When I first, entered education as a field, and when I was working here for a few years, in that time I realized that this grace or kripa is actually the minimal requirement that anybody needs to become an educator or a teacher. Because when you are a teacher in a classroom, very often, you will get students um, who uh, who will not be intrinsically interested in what you have to. So you have to have the grace, you have to have the insight of how to generate curiosity in them, how to make them feel that what I am about to share is relevant for you, it is worthy of your attention. And of course, in that process, being gentle and kind, and being trying to form a genuine connection with them. And in fact, actually not just for teachers, but also for parents, also for anybody in higher roles in society who have sort of junior people reporting to them. This activity of grace or kripa, this endeavor is very important process of being in a senior position and guiding your juniors towards the right path. And finally, compassion or karuna. So when the person has neither the receptivity nor the content, and so therefore you have to make both of these available to them. That is called karuna, and that of course is the highest, most probably the most difficult task of all. That is why these are not even humane perspective. These are not even humane. The Sorry, what are these? Are not humane activities. These are extra humane activities. These are higher humane activities because I think even at the humane level, it is probably these are still a higher reach. So just understanding that these are a next level of activity, it really puts things into perspective. Higher humane propensities, these are benevolence. So the ultimate truth in the form of coexistence. So like we saw in the previous in the humane propensities, we saw Lokeshna, Putteshna, Vitteshna, etc. Here we only have benevolence. Basically, the understanding the ultimate truth in the form of coexistence. So here, you have moved past even those desires or those ashnas, and sort of those have also moved behind. So now even those are not your desires anymore. And then finally, the higher human perspective. Again, this is only the truth. So now we have moved away from truth, untruth as well. This is only truth. Okay. So let's go to the next Anubhuti. And association succeeds or fails depending on whether its goal is with justice or injustice, which leads to development or decline of sociality, respectively. What is an association? Association refers to mutualities in which the expectations are voluntary. The purpose of relationships is not for mundane objectives out of animal consciousness. Instead, relationships are meant for higher objectives, such as evidencing higher consciousness as humane human, deific human, and divine human. Fulfilling these objectives itself is awakening. And then, what is a relationship? Relationship is the mutuality, where expectations are predetermined in the sense of completeness, is referred to as relationship. So, when we see this anubhuti, uh, it becomes very clear that the purpose of association is, justice. Associations are for justice. And the minimal expectations of respect and trust, basically, they are implicit in any association, however, fleeting or temporary it may be. So while an association, basically in the form of sampark, it may not be a very personal relationship. It might be something, that occurs for, very less time, even 20 seconds. There is limited participation, there is limited obligation. Even then, there are some minimum expectations of respect and trust that we have from any kind of association. So, for example, if you are taking a train journey, right, with your family, so you might want to carry some food for your family. So when you leave home, you will pack some tiffin, etc. However, we will not think that let's carry some food for the other people in the train also. What if someone is hungry? So I mean, if I want to, I can, but there is no obligation, so no other random passenger in the train can expect me to carry food for them. So in that sense, the expectations are not like very predetermined. I will carry food for my family. I will not carry food for other people in the train. However, the expectation of respect and trust is still, inherent. Whereas in a relationship, as it is written that there are predetermined expectations, there are predetermined roles and responsibilities, and also there is a mutual complementariness, there is a mutual completeness. In this book, I think later in chapter 16, we will read about the 7 kinds of relationship in more detail. So, that basically Babaji has identified 7 such complementarities, 7 such completeness or mutualities, in which all the different ways in which we can relate with a fellow human being, they are all encompassed in these 7 relationships. And they are all relationships of mutual complementariness. So, there will be some role that both parties are playing, and there will be a mutual fulfillment when these roles and these responsibilities and expectations are fulfilled. There are some nuances here in the context of association and relationship that I thought we can draw. So first of all is the idea that sometimes even when we meet somebody for a very short period of time, the purakta or the mutual complementariness or completeness that we feel can be one from those of the 7 relationships. So for example, if I see, one time I was at an Aadhaar card center. I had to update my Aadhaar card, so I was there, and this lady, she was in her 70s. She requested me that I left my glasses at home. So can you please fill out this form for me? And when I saw this lady, I was immediately reminded of my grandmother. And in that moment, even though it was a very short association, it took me 2 minutes to fill out her form. For those 2 minutes, the mutual uh, the exchange of values that happened mutually, it was just the way it would happen with my grandmother, even though it was a very short, a very brief association. What I was able to do for her, and then after that, when I gave her the form, she sort of patted my head, and she gave me some blessings and so on. uh, just that whole exchange was that of it reminded me of my grandmother. And meeting someone even for a short period of time, it can give you the sense of completeness, because the mutual exchange of values can occur even in a short period of time. However, once again, the expectations are not, as determined or as clear as they are in the actual relationship. So, again, this was an association for 2 minutes. After that, we went our separate ways. But even when we meet someone in an association, it is possible to exchange values. It is possible to feel the completeness that we feel in a relationship. Um, the way I like to think of this is that, on a thinking level, on a vaicharic level, on a bhav level, it is possible to have a relationship, or it is possible to feel connected with everybody in the sense of the seven relationships that there are. So, for example, when I was at Manav, there were a lot of young girls who were in the hostel, who went to school there, and especially those in 11th and 12th. So they would come, and we would have conversations about their career plans, about what they are planning for their future. Some of them would come and ask for help in their homework. So, at least on that level, of wanting them to be happy, of wanting them to feel, of wanting them to be successful, of wanting them to become happy, realized human beings, to wanting that for them. I felt the same way I would feel for my own, my biological sister in my family, right? So at least on the level of the feelings, at least on the level of the emotions, every time I was interacting with all of those girls, I would feel like I'm talking to a younger sister, and my feelings would also be the same as they were for a younger sister. So I would want her happiness, I would want her prosperity, I would want her to become a realized human being later. However, when it comes to your the actual familial biological relationships, then there are some additional responsibilities which are usually in the bhautik or the physical domain. So for example, for my sister in my family, if like maybe when she gets married, I would participate in the functions, and I would contribute some money to that, and there would be all of those expectations as well, which I would probably not do for other young girls. Similarly, if there is a parent, they would pay their own child's school fees, even though other children will evoke the same feelings in them. They will not be, and there will not be the expectation also that they go around paying every child's school fees. So, in the physical sense, in the material sense, the responsibilities are there for, the relationships in the family. And then on the bhav sense, you can have those feelings and emotions for everybody. So that is how I sort of draw this distinction between association and relationship. The key point here, the important point here is that both of these are serving towards the larger purpose of awakening or jagriti. So, this line often gets repeated in many shivers, and I like reminding myself also that sambandh jagriti ke arth mein hai. Any relationship, any association is eventually for the purpose of purnata, for the purpose of completeness, so that together we can become realized human beings. So every time we talk about relationships, it's important to remember that the ultimate purpose of relationships is so that we can mutually help each other and mutually work with each other to go towards that direction of our own enlightenment, our own jagriti, and therefore contribute towards the undivided society. So I think that is good for this anubhuti. Let's move ahead. Right. So the fulfillment of sociality is through duty and dedication, which leads to the development of sociality in the form of indivisibility and universality. Otherwise, its decline occurs. Okay. So fulfilling or nirvaha. Fulfilling is to evidence utilization, righteous utilization, and purposefulness, along with resolution and prosperity. That is to prove to be mutually complementary. Duty or kartavya, the duty is to perform the required work and behavior in a humane way while fulfilling the values. The dedication, nishtha, continuity in fulfilling duties and responsibilities is dedication. Resolution and prosperity are necessary for fulfilling sociality, for which humans have intellectual and physical means. The necessary resources and receptivity for a seeker to achieve their aim are referred to as means, which are expected in every seeker. Intellectual means or bodhic sadhan, potential, ability, and receptivity are intellectual means. Physical means or bhautik sadhan, materials and objects utilized in production of common aspirations and special aspirations are physical means. Okay. So, okay, let's finish this anubhuti actually. Chachi, if you can scroll down. Yeah. The desire is necessary to utilize the means mentioned above in trials, endeavors, and occupation. Okay. So, when we see this anubhuti, the fulfillment of sociality is through duty and dedication. So when we seek to live with sociality, when we seek to live in relationships, when we seek to live, for the mutual exchange of values, for mutual fulfillment in relationships, it is important to see the role of duty and dedication in making this happen. So, basically, this anubhuti is stressing on the role of duty and dedication in making fulfilling relationships happen. If duty and dedication are there, fulfilling relationships happen, and therefore, sociality or samajikta is developed. Otherwise, the decline of samajikta or the decline of sociality happens. So, these two ideas of duty and dedication, I find these very important. Specifically, dedication. Um, the idea that being in relationships, that doing our duties in relationships, this is not a burden. The relationship is inherently joyful. That the relationship is a source of happiness, that being in the relationship is helping me move towards realization, as well as giving me an opportunity to express myself and help the other person to also move towards realization. So, approaching the relationship as a place of, as a source of joy, as a source of happiness, as a place which is adding some meaning and fulfillment to my life. So that is important. Often in these days there is a discourse that relationships are a burden. That what is the point of, for example, taking care of people. This kind of mindset actually takes us away from relationships, because there it becomes more transactional, whereas seeing the relationship as a place of joy, seeing the relationship as a source of happiness, as a place which is contributing to my own fulfillment as well, that with that perspective one approaches the relationship very differently. So that commitment towards the relationship, that joy, that finding that joy in fulfilling my duties and responsibilities in the relationship, that actually is what is coming from duty and dedication. So kartavya and nishtha, that is how I place these. Then there is also in any relationship there is usually there is someone who is I would maybe one can say that more senior or more usually older along the path of realization. For example, in the parent child relationship or the teacher student relationship, the parent or the teacher, so their basically role or responsibility towards the student or the child, that also has a sense of ownership or an obligation towards making sure, towards ensuring their commitment towards reaching enlightenment or towards reaching realization as well. So there is always the role of the senior person uh, in playing that contributing role in the junior person's life. So there are lots of these dynamics in relationship. The kartavya or the duty is usually what is performed by the junior person towards the senior person, and the daitva or the the ownership or the accountability is usually the sense of accountability and ownership which is present in the more senior person. So, this is basically seeing the first part of this Anubhuti and understanding that resolution and prosperity are necessary for fulfilling sociality, for which humans have physical, sorry, can we move up? Yeah, so for which humans have intellectual and physical needs. This part of it, this explanation I find important because it also creates a distinction between these two ideas as different goals. So, resolution is a goal which is achieved through intellectual means, and prosperity is a goal which is achieved through physical means. The fact that these are two separate karyakrams, these are two separate programs, both of these require time, energy, and effort from our side. This is an important distinction to make. So, uh, today, as we see, the emphasis of a lot of families, of a lot of members of society, is usually towards the material aspect of things, towards the accumulation, towards getting more resources. And the assumption is that बच्चे बड़े होने के साथ साथ समझदार भी हो जाएंगे. That as the kids grow up, wisdom is something that will come automatically. It is something that will come with age. So understanding that it is not a process that happens automatically. It is a separate karyakram, it is a separate program, and therefore requires separate means and requires separate investment. And the physical karyakram, the Samriddhi karyakram, that is a separate program which requires a separate set of processes and a separate area of expertise. Understanding these two as distinct, this is, I think, an important point that comes up in this Anubhuti. So, as it has been described, means, so there can be two kinds of means, right? The necessary resources and receptivity for a seeker to achieve their aim are referred to as means. And there can be two kinds of means. There can be intellectual means as well as physical means. So with that, the intellectual means come out to potential ability and receptivity. So, we have some potential and we also have the capacity to increase that potential. We also have receptivity. Receptivity is something that we saw in the Anubhuti above also, where we were talking about receptivity and content in Daya and Kripa. So the receptivity is all. It is in our power. It is in our hands to work towards increasing our receptivity, towards increasing our curiosity, so that we are able to understand more. So when I am curious about something, it makes me driven to explore those topics, and then I'm sort of self motivated. I take initiative in driving my own learning. So all of these are in my hands, and it is possible for me to increase the levels of all of these, and therefore improve my own understanding. These are the bodhic sadhan or intellectual means. And the physical means are the materials and objects utilized in the production of common aspirations and special aspirations. So this is important. The desire is necessary to utilize the means mentioned above in trials, endeavors, and occupation. So simply having the means, simply having the sadhan, simply possessing the sadhan is not enough. The desire is also necessary. So the means itself is not going to achieve anything on its own. With my desire, I channelize the means, or I utilize the means to achieve something. Let's go to the next Anubhuti. The person who is driven with a strong desire to achieve something does not become satisfied until they have achieved it. So, you know, the desire for usage of intellectual and physical means is to satisfy a certain need. The need is differentiated as selfish, altruistic, and benevolent. Selfish. The plan to deploy resources in a limited and narrow way, confined only to one person or family, is referred to as selfish. These are thoughts and behaviors of seeking sensory pleasure and comfort only for oneself or one's family. So this is fairly self-explanatory, right? We've basically what the Anubhuti is saying is, Chachi, can we scroll a little up to the Anubhuti? Yeah. So since the previous Anubhuti ended on understanding desire, it is the same idea of desire which has sort of continued forward here. So when one has the desire to utilize these means or resources, there can be many ways of utilizing them basically. So I might want to utilize the resources I have only in my self-interest, or I can think about a larger interest, the interest of a larger society, go beyond this narrow conception of me and my family. So this is what this Anubhuti is talking about. So, the most selfish way of utilizing the resources is to think that, I have to think about me and my family. It is sort of like imagining, your circle of what you think is yours. So the narrower the circle is, the fewer people will be included in that circle. So it will probably be you and the members of your immediate family. And basically, when you are using resources for that limited and narrow sort of an area, you are basically only thinking about your own pleasure. And in that process, it is sort of like, whatever happens to others is not my concern. So as long as my family is getting its resources, as long as I have my house and I have, my comforts, the rest of the world, there can be hunger, there can be, avyavastha, there can be, other uh, things going on, and I am just not concerned about any of them. That is being selfish, or the perspective of swarth. Then the second one is altruistic or parat, the thoughts and behaviors for the comfort of others, and prioritization of deploying resources for achieving this are referred to as altruistic. So now, this is basically the second step where you have sort of broadened your circle a little bit. And in there are three other words also that are used in this context: samvedanheenta, samvedanshilta, and sanjnanshilta. So I think that they also somewhere correspond with these three. Samvedanheenta can be correlated with Swarth. Samvedanshilta can be correlated with Parats. This is how I have made sense of this. Sort of broadening your circle and thinking about others. But again, this is not thinking about others from an all-encompassing, coexistential perspective of undivided society. This is usually thinking about the comfort of others, usually the bodily or the sensory comfort of others. So, a lot of people may be engaged in charities that, oh, it's cold outside, let us distribute some blankets, or, people are hungry, let us set up a langar or a bhandara so that those who don't have food can, have some access to food. So that sort of a conceptualization, where one has started broadening that circle of what is mine, of what is included, of what I care about. But it's still not seen in the context of undivided society and universality. And then the final stage of this, which is benevolence or paramarth, here is where you start looking at things from the coexistential lens. So the thoughts and behaviors that accomplish universal well-being, along with resolution, offer solutions to problems, foster relationship based purely out of affection, and deploys resources to make these accessible to all, are referred to as benevolent. So, this is basically where the universal aspect also comes in. The above law is applicable to variously constituted social entities as well, which will end differences and humaneness will get established. So basically, the conceptualization of paramarth or universal benevolence, or including everybody in my circle. That my circle is not narrow; it encompasses everybody, and everybody's well-being is is a matter of concern for me. So I really like a sutra which says Sarv Shubh Mein Hi Swa Shubh Samaya Hai. That my well-being resides in everybody's well-being, and I think that is what correlates with the Paramarth. So resources are only three. So in all of this, we have been talking about resources, right? So there are only three kinds of resources: mind, body, and wealth, which corresponds with man, tan, and dhan. I also like the order in which Babaji always places these. So usually in Hindi, when we used to read these, the order would be tan, man, and dhan. But I like how Babaji places man first, sort of signifying that the mind or the intention or the conscious part of it, that is what matters the most. And then what you do with your body, and then finally the external wealth, which can be in the form of other natural resources. So the prioritization here of placing mind first. This is also something that I feel is something that we should note. Chachaji, it's 9:13. So do you think that we should maybe pause here for questions, or go
Yeah,
ahead?
I think we could pause for a moment and see if there are any questions. I mean, I was thoroughly enjoying your reading of this chapter. Was The examples that you had taken were so very straightforward. Your presentation, I would say, qualifies to be called as Saralta, uh, the epitome of Saralta. It was easy to understand and very easy to grasp. So something that you may want to actually think about, that uh, if you would like to basically develop some modules for doing some Parichaya Shivers, designing something in your own style and manner. Think something maybe Drishta is also doing. Uh, so I think that would be fantastic, both in terms of Adhyan Shivir capsules and also for uh, Parichaya thing. So it would be very good with you have the command on language and a very simple approach. So something which I would strongly recommend and would feel that it would be very good for all of us.
Thank you so much, Chachaji. I mean, this is very kind of you, and I'm very glad that you find my presentation this way. I have a lot of people to thank for this. Actually, a lot of these ideas are, I mean, I can't claim them as my own. A lot of these are ideas and examples that have come up in various group discussions that I have been a part of. A lot of these have been, inspired by examples shared by other Prabodhaks. So, I would not like to take credit for them by myself. And there has been a contribution of a lot of people in developing this understanding, however incomplete it may be. But I'm glad you found it useful.
Okay, very nice. Are there any questions for Sanjana? Anyone wants to be asking? Sanjana, what was the number of pages you wanted to do? For how many pages are left?
So after this, there are three anubhutis that are left.
Okay,
At least that is what I had thought I would do. I can also do the four anubhutis after that if if we have time. But
okay,
basically, three anubhutis after this: the Bodhik Prayog Anubhuti, Manviya Samudaya Anubhuti, and Madhav Matra Dwara Samudaya. entrepreneurs.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So looks like we don't have at the moment, people are very satisfied with your explanation. So if you like, you can do one more before we uh, close today's session. Yeah.
Sure, sure. So we can do the okay. So the next one, intellectual resolution is achieved through intellectual exercise and endeavor, while material prosperity is achieved through physical experimentation, endeavor, and production. Both intellectual resolution and material prosperity are helpful for the development of sociality. So this is an extension, of what we just discussed in the previous Anubhuti, that these are two separate programs. And, I am also continuously reminded of how much Babaji has emphasized on this idea in the past few Anubhutis, because these are things that we often tend to conflate with each other. So those who are there are also a lot of people who are very very engaged in the spiritual pursuit, who are very engaged in the pursuit of the mind, and in sometimes in that the material prosperity part, it gets neglected, it doesn't get so much importance. And on the other hand, you know sometimes the material prosperity part is given so much importance that the intellectual resolution, or just the fact that intellect is also something that has to be focused on, and not intellect in terms of what we study in schools and colleges, but knowledge of the jivan, knowledge of existence as coexistence. um, the fact that this is also something that has to be emphasized. Both of these things are things that have to be emphasized, and both of them have different means of achieving them. So, again, like we discussed above, the bhautik sadhan and the bodhik sadhan, the the here also we can see that intellectual resolution is achieved through intellectual exercise and endeavor, while material prosperity is achieved through the physical experimentation, which is basically the bhautik sadhan. So, using material resources, we do some experimentation, we do some endeavors, we do some experiments, we try different things, which eventually leads to production. So both of these are helpful for the development of sociality. So, I want to just quickly go back to how we started this chapter, because when we started this chapter, we had started with the question of human beings coming together. We had started with ideas of sangathan, parivar, families, and then we had talked about how sociality leads to uh, avashaktas and needs. So that entire circle actually, I feel, comes to, yeah, exactly this anubhuti. Sociality gives rise to needs, needs give rise to experimentation. So this anubhuti that we just read right now, I think, that is sort of closing the loop of this anubhuti that came right in the beginning of the chapter, that both of these things are necessary in creating an undivided society. And actually, when once again we link it to the title of the chapter, which is the human purpose, eventually why are we all here? So, it is for both these reasons. So, there is something that we get through intellectual achievements. There is also something that we get through the achievement of material prosperity. And it is through both of these contributions, that we move towards the path to resolution, towards complete understanding. So,
Yes. So, Sanjana, I just wanted to add one point here.
yes, of course, Chacha.
One, yeah, like once Babaji had said that समाधान की गति समृद्धि के साथ में है. Something that you are also emphasizing, that समाधान alone is not what is being answered. समाधान की गति जो है वो समृद्धि के साथ में. That
Yes.
movement of समाधान is with prosperity. So in our pursuit, especially for the young people like you and Tanuj, I would basically advise you to actually pay attention to both these things side by side. There is no need to actually jump for only one. and lose the sense of the other. So that is one thing. Other thing that Babaji had said was that व्यवस्था का ढांचा खांचा दरिद्रता से नहीं बना हुआ है, which means that this whole system of uh, righteousness cannot be made out of poverty. You have to be well off. You have to be having resources, right? So it means that you need to have the confidence not just in of the mind, but also of the wealth, right? So very, very important point, distinction that you raised here, that we need to actually work on both intellectual resolution and material prosperities side by side.
Thank you for bringing that in, Chachaji. I think that's, very important. And, I also feel that when in this time, in this age, when we need people to be working for, establishing this sort of undivided society, we need to have that kind of, material prosperity in the homes, to allow for, for example, one member of every family to be engaged in this activity. So, for example, today, if a lot of us are able to participate here, it is because there is prosperity in our homes. We know that, we've divided the duties of the family this way, that, there are certain people who are concentrating more on the material prosperity side, and to ensure that, that we are well off, that there are resources, and then it is those resources actually which are useful in enabling our participation, in the society as well. So I think, that this is such a nice statement, that both of these go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. They will necessarily go hand in hand. I'm finding it, very nice actually. As I mentioned, also a lot of sansthans all over the country are growing. They are, and they are able to do this because they have the resources to do so, because people are contributing with the resources, that they have, to be able to help take this karyakram and take this program forward. So, both of these things are contributing to each other. So, I'm glad you brought that up as well. Um, so, just taking this forward, the utilization and righteous utilization of natural abundance is imperative for material prosperity. This is, self-explanatory. We need natural abundance, we need resources, and we need to use them to be able to be prosperous. Natural abundance is in the form of material order, biological order, and animal. This is also things that we have studied in the previous chapter. Deployment of resources in the form of physical labor is necessary for the utilization and righteous utilization of natural abundance. So, the physical labor, basically, the natural resources in itself are not going to, convert into useful objects. We need to perform physical labor on it. So, for example, there is a block of wood. Someone needs to work on it, right? And do some chopping, do some shaping, etc., to convert that wood into a table or a chair, which is useful for us. And the sources or earth, the utilization and righteous utilization of body, mind, and wealth towards humaneness and higher humaneness lead to the development of sociality. So, Tan Man Dhan in themselves are resources, and utilizing them again with under this overarching umbrella of, humaneness and higher humaneness, this is what is going to lead to the development of sociality. So once again, this goes back into what we studied in the sociality anubhuti right in the beginning of the chapter. We see that slowly everything is, sort of tying back into itself, and all of this has become one full circle where we are talking about, we're just reinforcing that same point, that the righteous utilization of resources is necessary, and that is what is going to lead to, sociality, samajikta, exchange of values, fulfilling relationships, which is in turn going to lead to the undivided society. So I think we can pause here, Chachaji, if that
Yeah,
would.
I think yes, look, we can pause here for the day. Are there any questions for Sanjana? Anybody wants to make any observation?
Yes, I want to say something. It has been so nice to. That's exactly what I was trying to express. That if what is being proposed is connected to life, somehow it comes more alive and it becomes easier to see it. And you've done it so beautifully at such a young age. It's amazing. Very inspiring for me also to to delve deeper into it and see these connections. So Sanjana, really well done. Really. Very
Thank you so much,
admirable.
Renuji. I'm
Yes.
really glad you liked it and found it useful.
Shilpa Didi, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to congratulate Sanjana. Like, you did an amazing job. And this chapter is, anyways, like the whole of Darshan, so beautiful. Like, it's got really beautiful definitions, and you explained very well. And I really like what you said about teachers. That's the minimum requirement. They need grace because they just can't leave a student ki like nahi samajhna to mat samjho types. They have to,
Right.
inspire the student. So the minimum thing is grace in them. So even in our deluded society, we have these qualities in us. So I think overall what you said, like even the grandmother example was very touching. Ki in a small contact, there's so much of mutual fulfillment. And I think that's why people like to do social service also, because it's very fulfilling for them. So it's how, like, so the whole thing it flowed very well. So really great job. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Auntie. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, when you were actually reading it, I was trying to imagine my own daughter when she would be able to speak like you, such nice things. It must be very heartening for Sanjeev Bhaiya to listen to you, and we would
Bhaiya,
love to hear from him in the next session. I have requested Sanjeev Bhaiya to actually talk about something in the next session.
जी भैया
yeah, I would also like to say something about her
Ji Shobha
explanation.
Didi. Yes, and
So,
it is your next turn after this. Yes.
yes, so I would also like to thank her because she came in last minute to help me, and it was so nice of Sanjana to do that. And the way she has explained purpose, it is so important for human life, and then the way she has connected efforts, endeavors, and purpose, and then it's so beautiful to see young people to understand this and express it so well. I really feel sometimes so little, like these young girls, boys, they are marvelous, doing great.
Indeed. Completely agree.
And I also want to say that when you have your first shiver, please, I'll be your first student. So looking forward to it whenever that
And
happens.
and I'll be number 2.
I think maybe Drishta and I can plan a shiver together.
Oh, that would be fantastic. Absolutely. Both of you are
We already have
natural.
an audience signing up.
Okay, so I think we will close today's session and we will meet again on the coming Saturday. Looking forward to these sessions always. Thank you so much. Thank you and see you again.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you. Namaste.
थैंक यू जी नमस्ते
Stay